You're listening to More Than Reports, and I'm your host, Paul B. Felix.
Do you think data solutions are only for big enterprises? Think again. In this episode, we explore how small and mid-sized businesses can build effective data solutions without breaking the bank.
Paul, I was talking to a friend the other day. He works at IT for a large, actually not a very large firm, more like a hedge fund. So there are probably hundreds of people. And he told me his spend, or the firm's spend on databases. Mind you, it was not databases; it was a cloud data warehouse. Was running upwards of $10 million. At the same time, every day we do our work and we look at databases that are free. And I'm starting our conversation with databases because they are uh, the heartbeat of all things related to data analytics. If you are trying to build a dashboard, you're going to need one. If you're trying to do data science, you're going to need one. So data sits at the very core of everything we do, and you need to store your data, hence databases. Um, so between open source, which is free, and tens of millions of dollars for a company that's not that large, um, where does the truth lie? How much does it cost? Or I'll actually ask a more provoking question: how much should it cost to run analytic solutions?
Right. Wow, 10 million's a lot. I would love to learn more about that. I think that's an extreme case. You're putting the extremes situations here where $0 to $10 million. I assume that's annual cost is what they're spending.
That's true. It was annual, and yeah, as I intentionally put in the extremes, it's never free, and I guess you and I have lots of opinions about that. But I'll before you go, I'll add this little comment. It's not unusual. This is a mid-sized firm. If you think of just like hedge funds, hundreds of people. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of people spending tens, many millions of dollars just for databases. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I mean, I guess it all depends on what their workload is. I can imagine a hedge fund that's kind of got a data intensive approach to whatever they're trying to do. Um, I mean, that $10 million is consuming a lot of resources, no matter how you look at it. In pretty much any platform, that would be a lot of database resources. Each of them, categorize these resources differently and charge for it differently. But obviously, $10 million a year is not in the realm of possibility for the clients that we work with. Right, our clients are either mid market or even new companies that are trying to get into analytics or just simply take advantage of data that they're already collecting and, add value with it, make their operations run more efficiently, capture opportunity. That's what they're trying to do. And for the most part and again, for our clients and the clients we hope to work with, it is more commodity storage here that we're talking about. It's not, there's no need for whatever database storage engine that's any more than a commodity. Database storage engines or RDBMS, relational database management systems, have been around forever, and they are commodities at this point. It's like I don't know, how would you equate this to an automobile? You can get from point A to point B in a lot of different ways. If you wanted to get to point A to point B in a McLaren, you can do that, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. Or if you want to get from point A to point B in a Yugo, right, that would get you there as well. If all you're concerned about is getting from point A to point B, meaning you're not concerned about bragging to your friends about the type of car you're driving, well, then the most efficient way of getting from point A to point B, and I guess you have to consider reliability and the features involved. Does it have an air condition? The same thing with databases, right? Do they have the features you need? Is it able to carry the workload efficiently that we're trying to offer? It's just there's just no need to spend a lot of money on storage engines, in my opinion, nowadays. On our side of the business, we are a SQL Server shop, so we pretty much use SQL Server for all of our implementations, various flavors of SQL Server. And we can usually do that, for a new company, just to get a price point out there to have a conversation. For a new company, the infrastructure as a whole, not just a storage engine, but all software that involved, infrastructure, everything, we can usually get a brand new company off the ground for less than $500 a month, sometimes even $200 a month, depending on what we're dealing with. So the cost can be almost trivial at this point for companies wanting to get into analytics.
All right. So I went from 0 to $10 million, but you just corrected me. We should go from $5,000, or maybe more precisely $6,000, to tens of millions of dollars in database spend, because I think we set relatively a new bottom there. You can run databases for a year for a few $1,000s. That's a fact, right? We
Oh
have
yeah.
experienced that, and we know that can be done. Well, let's drill down a little bit here. And there's a couple of things about data. If you have a ton of it, you don't want to process it all the time. You just need to have it there for you. And that's the piece we usually refer to as storage. Then there's the work you do with the data when you analyze, you're processing the data. And that's commonly referred to as the compute side of the database. Um, or of the data. And as your data grows, that distinction becomes more important. When your data is small, you tend to leave your data stored closer to the database. So there's a point in that, I guess, curve where, as data grows, you need to be more careful the way you pay for your storage and you pay for your compute. That tends to be less true when you have less data, where you can not worry so much about the cost of storing it very close to the compute. It gets a little technical, but it can be important, because the truth is, well, not the truth, we hear frequently storage is cheap. And these cloud providers advertise as you can have many terabytes of data and pay a few dollars for storing your data. But most, and here I get to my point, most of your average size businesses don't need to concern themselves with that, because the amount of data is not large enough so that becomes a problem, right? So if you are taking all weather points in the universe and trying to make a financial bet based on that, maybe you need a ton of data. But if you're running your average size business, certainly you won't, right? So
Right.
and that's most of us. And that brings me to I guess one initial conclusion. For most of us, you should not expect to spend a lot in database technologies. Actually, you should expect to spend as little as possible, and it is completely realistic, as you described, to do so. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I'm talking $500 a month, I'm talking database, storage, backup, infrastructure, bandwidth. I'm talking everything for that dollar amount. If you just talked about what it costs for the database engine, even less. And we can get into how you accomplish that. But I do want to go talk about that. Um, you know, what is the data quantity here? What's the reality about data quantity? So, number one, our philosophy is you should not take this kitchen sink approach to data warehousing. A data warehouse, while it is called a warehouse, it's not about just throwing everything into the warehouse. It's about building data structures that actually support the analytics. They're going to add value for the business. So, and you can, just by taking that simple approach of saying, let's put things in the warehouse that are valuable to us, that's going to cut your cost right away, because you're not taking every single piece of data you have and thinking, well, maybe at some point in the future, I might find some use for this thing. No, that's not the approach. Uh, Set aside the cost for the infrastructure, the database engine, and so forth. The cost of the people is going to go through the roof whenever you take that approach, the kitchen sink approach to data warehousing. So that's one thing. And as for the data quantity, um, how much data do companies typically need to deal with? We're not talking about petabytes here. We're talking about, in most cases, the companies we worked with, again, the mid-market, we're looking at terabytes, often less than a terabyte, and sometimes even, less than half a terabyte or a quarter terabyte. So we're in the gigabyte range here. So it's not like this is a big data problem. It's not going to overwhelm the capabilities of even the most, I don't know, the database engines have been around forever. You could do this on Postgres, you could do this on MySQL, you can do this in SQL Server. There's all sorts of database engines that can handle this. I'm kind of on a rampage here, but the other thing I want to mention is what's important. What's important is we're trying to add value. We're not just building a data warehouse and a business intelligence solution for the fun of it. We're trying to add value. So that means every dollar we spend on these back-end technologies is a dollar we have to make before we've made any advancement. We've not been at all successful until we've overcome the cost of all of our overhead, let's call it, or in this case, database technologies. So it is not just, it's not a small thing, really, right? If you go and you start spending $10,000, $20,000 a month on your back end, well, now you've just reduced the value of the overall solution by that amount. But often you can overcome that. I'm just saying when you're in the smaller or mid-sized business situation, that may be enough of a cost to actually supersede the actual value we're going after. So it's critical that we design the architectures in a way that is going to make us even success be a possibility getting out the gate.
That's a key observation. We may make it sound like it doesn't matter, but if you're not making money on it, 10,000, 20,000 do matter. So even though we are saying, and I think the next step in our discussion is we have settled that databases should not be a key concern, but still you can never lose sight of, am I getting a return on every dollar I'm spending on however many dollars or however few dollars I'm spending on that technology. So that takes care of, I guess, the foundation. It is very realistic these days to assume that you're going to spend minimally on databases or database technology to run your business for most of us. If you're not a company that processes petabytes of data, and there's a ton of them, and they're very interesting businesses. But most businesses won't be in that position and are in the perfect position to leverage the fact that the cost of this technology has actually come down dramatically. So that moves us to the next step. I have the data, it sits there, it costs me a reasonable amount. I'm happy with that. Now I need to distribute that. People need to start working with it. Do I need to spend money? Back in the day, when I started in this business, it was very realistic to sell millions of dollars in what we called BI technology, made up mostly of some sort of processing engine, final processing engine, and very importantly, a visualization layer. And some were fairly complex, and you could spend, again, millions of dollars just in that. What would you say the situation is today for, and I guess we could call this episode database technology or analytics for all of us, as opposed to for Google and Amazon and Microsoft. So for all of us, Paul, what can you expect in terms of investment in BI technologies?
Yeah, it's a different world today, right? You and I go back a long time, and I think when we initially met, we were focused on front-end software, that front-end BI software. And back then, 6-7 figure deals were not uncommon for these front-end tools, which may have also had some type of analytical engine as well. Today, it's a whole different story. Today, you've got multiple options to buy front-end technology, data visualization technology at, on an as-needed basis. So instead of doing the what do you call it when you buy it out right now? I can't remember the word. Uh,
Perpetual licensing? Are you talking about
Perpetual, right?
perpetual
Yeah,
licensing? Oh
right.
my
No more
God.
perpetual licensing.
Yeah, that's a throwback.
Right. And it's been a while, right? We don't hear that
Yeah.
anymore. Anyway, with tools like Power BI and Tableau, you can buy a user seat on a monthly cost that's almost trivial. Not to say you can't spend a lot of money with these tools, but at the low end, I'll just use Power BI since that's what we use most often. You can get a Power BI Pro license for $10 per user a month. That and what you get for that money is almost unbelievable when you compare where we were just a short period ago. It is really unbelievable. Um, but like I said, that you can certainly still spend a lot of money if you have a lot of users. At $10 per user a month can add up pretty quickly. So there's strategies on how you keep this cost under control. Um, I don't know. Maybe I should go into how we talk about or how we keep our costs under control for these small and mid-sized businesses. You think that's on?
I think
Okay.
that's a great idea. Yeah, because
Yeah. So let's,
there's two sides to it. On the face of it, $10 is not a lot, right? I mean,
right.
you're it's one. We talk a lot about the value of the people, right? It's all people, and these are people that whose let's call it economic value runs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? So $100 a year to enable them to navigate and analyze business data seems to me like a no-brainer in terms
Right.
of value. But still, if you have a ton of those people, it adds up. But if you have a ton of those people, probably your business can't accommodate that. So I would go as far, Paul, as saying if we add up the fact that you can run databases in the hundreds of dollars per month, and you can run front end technology and not just a limited version, a very robust, and
Right.
according to research institutes, a leading one in the tens of dollars per month. Uh, I think that allows us to draw some conclusions. What conclusions do you see from that? The fact that
I,
cost has come down so much.
I would say that you know, um, our background, at least my background in consulting, has mainly been prior to Leapfrog BI, working with very large companies, spending very large amounts of money. And what our charter here is at Leapfrog BI is to bring enterprise analytics to the mid and small market. And I would say that we would only be able to do that if things like what we're talking about right now were possible. Buying a front end solution at $10 per user a month, being able to have database storage infrastructure, for a few $100s a month. This makes it so that all of these costs involved, even before you start talking about people, it makes it possible. When you combine that with the right architecture, the right tooling, the right design, the right methodology, when you combine all those together, now you have something where the mid-market can succeed. They can actually get a lot of value out of these solutions for a price that they frankly can afford, where 10 years ago it would not have been possible. You would have had really large cost up front that would have made it just not something that most companies would even entertain.
And I think that brings us to I guess the main conclusion, at least for me. You tell me how you feel about it. We spent a few minutes here talking about. Um, I think our main goal is to illuminate a discussion around how do I get access as well, all of us, right? The average size company, the one that is not funded by uh, a ton of capital, or those that don't dominate a space so strongly that they can afford to do whatever they want and not run the risk of hurting their bottom line. For the rest of us, you do need constantly to obsess about impact on your bottom line, make sure you're not hurting your growth. Survival is a central issue.
Yeah.
JP Morgan is not at risk.
Right.
Amazon, Apple are not at risk. They're going to be around for
Mhm.
decades if they don't, if something catastrophic doesn't happen. All other companies, they live in a more competitive environment. So these decisions are much more carefully made. So
That's right.
all of this to say that if technology is not a concern, I think we get to the key point here. It's all about the people. So since we're talking investment, let's, I guess, move past the cost of acquiring the technology to run this thing on and focus on what it really costs, which is how do I get people to get us to the point where we need to have the data and all the capabilities to make key decisions. So I think we live in a post. I'm making this up right now. Post technology world where
Almost. Yeah.
it became we should really shouldn't care. Database, yeah, pick one. Front end, I remember working for not less than 6 months with a free dashboarding technology. I think Databricks bought them. The name was Redash. It was $0, and it did the job. It connected to any data source, any database, did all the charts I needed, and I could build
Right.
dashboards. And people loved it. It wasn't amazing, but it was good enough, and it cost zero, which is almost as much as 10 per user per month. So now we're in this world of this post technology uh, business intelligence phase of our lives, I guess. And we need to focus on what really matters: the cost of getting people to do this kind of work. What do you think of that thought, Paul? Does that make
Uh,
sense?
the people cost is way outweighs any of the technology costs nowadays. And I think by post technology, you're saying the technology is almost irrelevant
Exactly.
now.
Exactly. That's what I
And it's
mean.
true. There's so much. It's when we get on a call with someone new and they're focused on technology, it's an immediate concern for me because it just doesn't matter anymore if you're going to use this storage engine or that storage engine, or you want to use this terminology even, or you like this vendor, you don't like this vendor. To me, it's like buying socks. It's I'll buy them from Costco or Walmart or Amazon. I don't care less. It's just socks. It's a commodity, and that's it. It's just not a lot of there's nothing exciting there anymore.
Well,
And look,
that's not true, Paul. The last time I met you, your socks looked pretty cool.
well, yeah,
They had
I,
fun colors on them.
that's
So I'm gonna say you picked those carefully.
that's Amy's role in those sock
Oh,
selection.
is
But
that the wife?
yeah,
All right.
um, but anyway, the technology is just not. I agree. It's not the main concern. Now, I don't want to make it sound like you can't go wrong. You can go wrong, and you can spend a lot of money on technology. Vendors are focused on selling their software, right? And to sell software, you got to have new stuff all the time. That's pretty much it. You got to have something new. I mean, look, Fabric is kind of the new. I guess you can call it new. It's a collection of tools that Microsoft has come out with, basically the same tools that have been around for quite a while. But I guess it's kind of glued them all together where you're able to work with them more efficiently. Well, Synops has been around for quite a while. What other cloud databases
What
do
is
you,
Synapse?
Synapse just I guess you'd call it a big data
Cloud,
storage engine. It's a
like a
storage engine.
cloud data warehouse by
Yeah,
Microsoft? Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, any of these storage engines can likely do the job. I think that's the moral of the story here. I would like to get into all the nitty gritty of how you actually accomplish doing something like this for $500 a month all in for your infrastructure costs. That's probably another episode because that isn't going to happen by just going and starting to sign up for services. You're going to pay more than that if you just go into, we use Azure. If you go into Azure and you start buying services, you're going to pay more than that. So there are some, I guess you can call them tricks, but not really secrets or anything. It's just there's some ways that you have to manage your infrastructure so you are not spending an arm and a leg on resources that ultimately you're only going to be utilizing, like you're talking about compute, you're only going to be utilizing them for a very short amount of time each day in most cases. And I want to talk about one other thing. The people listening to this often are probably hearing how, we've got so much data out there now, and there's this huge amount of data that companies have. And I don't want it to make it sound like we don't believe that, right? Some companies do. Google does, Microsoft does, Apple does. All these large companies that are, at the top of the pyramid, they likely have bukus and bukus of data that has special needs. And what we're talking about here probably is not appropriate for them. But 90+% of us out there, I don't know what the percentage is, but if you can imagine taking a line chart and drawing it across with the line representing the size of the company, it would be a very flat line until you kind of get to the end, and then it would go up very sharply.
Right.
So
Talk of
all
a
of
long
this
tail.
long tail,
That's it, right? Yeah.
yeah, the whole long tail it's 90+% of us out there,
The rest
and for
of us,
that
yes.
group, which is the market we serve, you do not need to be spending buku money on infrastructure. There's no doubt about it.
All right. That's an excellent topic for a future episode. How do you get around? I wouldn't go as far as saying industry pressure, but there's this enormous trend around the what is modern and new ways of computing data that can be incredibly tricky for the 90% to navigate.
Yeah.
Let's do a cloud database. Sounds cool. I don't have to run a server, but then you're metered. And every time you turn that thing on, it's a couple bucks. Well, but if I need to leave that on 24 hours a day, and if I need more of those, then it adds up so quickly. So we should talk about that next time we meet.
There's a lot of variables there. That's a whole topic on how do you actually accomplish this? What are your options? That would be a really good conversation.
All right. So we're going to leave it at this for now and meet everybody next time. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. Our contact information is in the description. See you in the next episode.